Welcome to the June 15th Idea Share, and we still have people jumping on, so I'm delighted to have everybody back for another Monday discussion. My name is Beth Golick from Key Ministry. I'm joined by my colleague from Key Ministry, Catherine Boyle, who is our Director of Mental Health Ministry. And let's just get started. How's it going, people? What are your churches up to? What do you have for us this week? Who had church in person this week? Anyone? Okay, see a couple hands going on. Any feedback you want to share on that?
We're in Greenville, South Carolina, Joe, at Grace Church, but we have, this is our 4th week doing in-person services. Attendance overall has been low. We're only doing 20% occupancy of the room, taking precautions, having natural air come in. Everyone has to wear a face mask, but we do have a tent option outside, so we have a different worship team. What there has been always, it's funny to see that there's more people that sign up for the tent than there are people that sign up for inside. I think partially is that. And so something we started offering for our special needs individuals is 2-to-1 care in a room that's been sterilized. And so surprisingly, we haven't had a lot of our families take us up, because we've had a lot of people say that they're interested in it. And then when we kind of follow up with, they're kind of a little bit hesitant in that. So we had one individual. So we have 170 individuals that we serve across ages, adults to children. And so only like 3 to 4 have responded saying, hey, they'd be interested in that. So,
okay.
But yeah, so then a lot different.
Did you have a hard time getting volunteers to, I mean, obviously you don't need tons of volunteers yet, but are your volunteers back on board, or how did that go?
Yeah, we actually have more volunteers than we need right now, which is a really great thing. And all of our volunteers, whilst like we're not making our children wear masks, that are individuals with disabilities wear masks just because of the either not able to or can't keep it on, but all of our volunteers have to wear a mask, and so they go through like a full cleansing, everything like that. So yeah, so that's sorry, I don't know if that totally answered your question, but yeah.
And then is your entire children's ministry back in place too, or were you just offering this to families with special needs?
This is the first week that we started children's at a very low capacity as well. So they're in a big room, they're taking all the precautions as well. But we didn't have, I mean, I think that we had maybe 10 kids sign up, and we have a pretty big campus. So I don't know whether it was kind of not a last minute decision, but they kind of made an announcement early last week about it. So there wasn't a ton of time, or maybe people aren't aware of it yet. So we'll kind of see how the numbers go. But the first week was the last week that we offered some form of childcare for only ages 2 to 5. 2 to 5 was the only area that we accepted. So.
Okay. And thank you for sharing that, Joe. And then Doc, I know you weren't involved necessarily, but your church had children's ministry. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looked like?
Right. So this weekend, we've also had church now, I think this week 4 or 5 since coming back, and this week they launched children's ministry just for elementary. They've had student ministry going on for the past couple of weeks. They meet on Wednesday nights, but this weekend was children's ministry. They moved into phase 2. With that means that no staff, no volunteers need to wear face masks. It's just on a optional basis if they want to, but it's not required. They had, again, by reservation only. They're not doing nursery. Nursery will start up in 2 weeks for that. And so then it'll be pretty much back to full. They only had 50, they could have it where they could take up to 50 kids per service. What they did, they met all in a large room where we do kids worship. And then to make sure they had social distancing, they bought 50 hula hoops, put those on the floor, taped them down, and then told each kid they had to stay in their hula hoop and had the hula hoop 6 feet apart. from each other. So I don't know how it worked, but in theory, it sounded good. But they taped them down pretty well so that the kids couldn't pick them up and play with them. With that, they did open up then for special needs ministry. As of Friday, I knew that they had at least 3 or 4 families that were coming back. And they were going to have buddies for them as needed. A couple other families wanted to come back, but they just already had other plans this weekend, so probably the next week or two. But there's still quite a few families that, like everyone else, just not feel comfortable with coming back yet. One of our other campuses, they meet in a school, and so they're not able to meet there yet. So they've been meeting outside in a tent or outside at a park and they're trying to find some other resources. It's starting to really get hot. This weekend it was 90 degrees and humid, and so that's warm, and especially when you've got kids out there too. So they're trying to figure that out but they're moving forward on everything.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so for those of you who aren't familiar, so Joe is in South Carolina, right? And Doc that just shared
Yes.
is in Kansas. So that gives you a kind of what's going on around the country. Would anybody else like to share if they kind of reopen it all? And I may, if there was background noise, I muted your mic, but go ahead and unmute yourself at any time. So I'm looking, let's see, Sylvia's Maryland, so there's no way you weren't open. Al is New Jersey. You guys aren't meeting in person yet, I'm sure.
We're not, but I talked to someone else yesterday whose church did meet in person. So some New Jersey churches are meeting now.
Okay. All right. And I see Bronwyn from California, and there's no way you guys were in person yet.
No, not at all. I think some small churches are doing it, but definitely not the majority.
Yeah.
Our daughter is in Maryland, and they actually had their first service opening yesterday.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
In,
Maryland near
close to,
DC?
close to Annapolis.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think it depends on where your church is located and the size of the church, because we have a relatively large congregation where about 4,000 people can come into a service at a time, and we have 4 services a day.
Wow.
You're in Prince George's County, I think you said last week?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, our daughter's in Anne Arundel County.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the farther out you go to, the more likely you are to be open. So I think I told you all last week, but my church will be doing an outdoor service starting not this coming Sunday, but the next Sunday. So we're getting everything, squared away for that. I think they're going to be putting like the equivalent of hula hoops, but in paint on the grass. So to keep people, in their own little area. And I think I told you there's going to be like, kind of like smoking and non-smoking, but it has nothing to do with smoking. It'll be, I think, singing and non-singing. So that's how we're going to accommodate that part. So.
Our church, San Antonio, Texas, we had our staff meeting this morning, and this is the first week that staff has even gone back. Not all staff has gone back, but they are not opening until July 11th and 12th, and it will be babies through 9 months is the only child care. And FYI, I sent out to our over 250 special needs families who would be interested in having a volunteer come to their home. And 3 responded yes. And the volunteer that was wanting to go in their home then tested positive for COVID-19.
Oh, come on.
And to cancel the 3 visits that they even wanted. But we're still on a very cautious basis here in San Antonio. A lot of it, I think, has to do with our mayor, who's more conservative than our governor. But with a recent uptick in cases. My office mate, I'm at home, I'm not in my office. My office mate who did go in last week tested positive for COVID-19. So we're on a very cautious basis here, although some of the smaller churches that I'm aware of have started back, but one that I'm very close to, and I don't know, I mean, I want to say kind of big, but not too big. They planned on starting this weekend and at the last minute canceled and went back to online. So we're still really cautious in San Antonio.
Okay, so even though Texas is pretty open, you're playing it a little bit. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, San Antonio is playing it very safe for the most part.
Okay. And Catherine, I know your church has been meeting in person in Virginia.
Yeah, this was the second week that we'd met in person, and I haven't been there. We went one Sunday to the church in the parking lot. We've had those kind of services where you stay in your car for, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks now. And then a few weeks ago, they started allowing people to sit and, you know, bring your own lawn chair kind of thing. I assume kind of where your car is, but I don't know for a fact. I mean, maybe there was some seating arranged towards the front, but yeah, it's just worked out better for our family to stay at home. Mm-hmm. But I have noticed that when we watch online that there are only a couple of singers on the stage on the sanctuary service, and they're far apart from each other. And then everybody's wearing masks. Only family groups are sitting together. It's obvious that there's chairs removed to create social distancing. Yesterday we did communion, and they now have those, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's like a little packet of everything, you know, both the bread and the juice in one little packet. We didn't previously have that, but I think we talked about that some weeks ago in this forum or one of these discussions that we've had over the past few months. So it looked like there's a lot of people though, both Sundays, but I'm not sure what the state requirement is now. It's like maybe 30 to 50% capacity for churches, but definitely everybody is not showing up in person yet.
Yeah. Diana, were you the 4,000? Who was the 4,000 person church? Was that Diana?
That was Sylvia.
Yeah.
Sylvia?
No, our church is 12,000.
Okay. That has the big services. That was Sylvia. That was Sylvia. Okay. How do you all do communion? Like for those of you with really big churches, how do you pass a plate? Do you?
Yeah, we've had the little communion cups forever.
Okay.
And we do pass a plate.
Okay. And do you think you will continue to pass the plate? Because I think like that's one of the first things that's going to go for a lot of churches.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, we do online communion now from home. So
okay.
It may stay that way for a long time.
Joe, how about you?
Yeah, so we were trying to get those packets, but they've been sold out and they're on back order. And so what we ended up having to do, so everyone is socially distanced. So like whenever you register to come with family, like we set that amount of chairs out for the exact people. So there's socially distanced and everything. So we have ushers that are wearing gloves and masks that are, they're in cups. Everything is in, like the juice and the cracker are put in cups. Mm-hmm. And then they walk to the table and then they're handed it. And then once that group comes and sits down, then the next group can go. So there's no overpass. But we have ushers wearing gloves and masks that are passing all of those out, or they're walking to a specific location to get those. So that's what we're having to do until we can get the cracker or the little packets in. So
Catherine,
everybody in America wants them.
Buying them all. Tammy, how about you?
Yeah.
What do you guys do?
For communion, what we're doing is everyone will pick up their packet as they go into the sanctuary. Okay. In Wisconsin, we're open because they had a Supreme Court decision that it was unconstitutional. So we've been open pretty much and having to make decisions about ourselves without a whole lot of state guidance. We've kind of followed our community health, what is recommended. We are opening the 28th. And we have about 4,500 people. They did a survey ahead of time to find out who would be comfortable coming back, and ended up with about 50% is kind of what the survey results indicated. We are going to stagger, so it'll be every other row. And then we're also opening up an overflow into our another one of our large opening or meeting areas. We will have live worship bands, but they are socially distancing, a song at the beginning and a song at the end is what they've decided to do. Ushers and greeters will wear masks and gloves. All staff will be expected to wear masks, but the attendees don't have to. And that's kind of where we're at as far as our first opening. So we'll keep you posted.
Okay, yes, yes. Excellent. Any other feedback, comments, questions on just kind of church opening in general? And I love this because then I go back and share this with my church leadership.
Oh, go ahead, Tiffany. No, Tiffany, you go ahead.
Like mid-level, I would say church, we have about 900 members, and we're in Michigan. And I just caught on to that you guys were having these calls every week, and I'm like, what? I've been missing this. So I'm excited to be a part of this.
Welcome.
Yeah. So we are looking to open in July, just because we're trying to get it all figured out. We don't have a pastor right now, so that adds to the craziness of everything. But something that we've done in the past and what we're going to try to do now is set up round tables so that families can sit at round tables. We loved it in the past when we did it, and we just did it by chance. And we can do a lot of things with the round tables as far as like butcher paper and crayons, and so that, you know, kids and people like myself who doodle all the time can be occupied. But we are going to do tables, and I think that will be a good thing. I was just on the phone with a parent and said, hey, this is what we're going to try. What do you think? And she's like, that's such a better idea than, you know, every other pew, if you have the space, right? A 4,000 person church, that's not very doable. You need a lot of tables. And we're going to need a lot of tables too. But I'm excited to see that and to see how that goes, and just, yeah, hope that works for us.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. You're the first I've heard that's talk tables. So
I was gonna say Tammy's point about the unconstitutionality of like churches being closed. That happened in California too a couple weeks ago. So they said, okay, you can open, but here are your guidelines, and they're incredibly restrictive. I mean, for a church, like we're probably about the same size as Tiffany's church. So the big part was, yeah, kids and like minors from other families can't intermingle, and you can't have, they said, shut down all your outdoor structures. And like most of our church, we have like a huge outdoor thing, because we live in California, we could do that. So it was like, yeah, you can reopen, but under these like restrictive conditions. But then what we ran into was that, you know, people in our congregation and people in our community were hearing, oh, churches can reopen. Why are you not reopened? And so then we said, well, like you can reopen, but would you like to come to a service like this? They also, I think they said there's no, you can't have singing either. So I said, would you like to come where you just go in with your mask and your family and stay together, hear a sermon, and walk out? And so I think that's like part of what, and as our state, you know, there's some things that are reopening, like they're reopening movie theaters, but you can only have 20% capacity and things like that. So I think people, what they're hearing is we're reopening, so why aren't you reopening? But like, oh no, it's like reopening, but with a lot of restrictions. So I think, you know, back when we were all at the stay-at-home order, it was almost easier because no one could do anything. So it was kind of understood. So now, you know, we're getting a lot of pushback, I guess. But then once we explain it to people, like, oh yeah, that would be kind of terrible. So I don't know if anyone has any, you know, how have you guys like educated your congregation or like communicated, like, here's what we're doing and why we're doing it or why we're not doing it? I don't know if you guys have anything to that.
that's a really good
We
point.
sent out,
Yeah, go ahead.
we sent out a letter to, in our, we call it Stuff That Matters, but it just goes out to everyone that signs up, that just lists, and you can, I think you can get it from our website, but it's just a list of why we do some of the things that we do. There's a question and answer, but then there's one specifically on mask, just because there's a lot of confusion on that. And so I think that's helped give some clarity. And we've been teaching about it from the stage a good bit the past couple weeks, about freedoms and laying down some of that, to walking through some of Romans 14 and 15 and a couple of different passages, but just laying down your rights for others.
Yeah, thank you. Joe, if you're able to post the link in the chat, I know there's some people that would like to take a look at that. I don't know if that's possible, but okay, Joe's going to work on that. Excellent, thank you. I know masks is a really polarizing issue, and I mean, I know just within, you know, our own congregation, we've got people that feel very strongly, you know, both both sides. So it's, you know, we're going to have a lot of grace during these next few months. So, and again, and I know we all know this, but it's just super important that we continue to offer really good online options, because there are 100%, there are families that are not going to be able to come in, you know, for a while in person. And Tammy is clarifying, a lot of T's. Tammy's clarifying that they're not opening up their children's ministry until fall. Okay. Autumn's asking in the chat, our interim pastor has been sending out regular videos to everyone, keeping people posted of changes. That's great. That's, yeah, just continuing to have those conversations. And we all know that people don't always read their email or whatever, so you have to hit them multiple ways. So that's great, Autumn. Thank you for sharing that.
Hey, can I jump in here real quick, Beth?
Absolutely.
So our pastor, our church sends out an update on Friday before Sunday service to let everybody know, you know, exactly what's happening, because things have changed over the last few weeks and it's hard to keep up kind of with where everything is. And you can also receive a text notification. So like we get basically the same information condensed first thing Sunday morning on the text. And where we are, masks are mandatory for now. Although I was at the grocery store the other day and lots of people were not wearing any mask whatsoever. So I don't know what that means, but anyway, so it's been a little easier for some of us, I think, to navigate the mask issue when it's, you know, it's more required for people who are in person.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. All right, I'm going to change subjects for a second, but we can always come back to this if you think of something or have a question. So Father's Day is this coming Sunday, and I'm wondering if anybody came up with any ideas for either, you know, pouring into your families or anything around Father's Day that you're doing. Wow, you're overwhelming me with all your ideas. Calm down, everybody. Okay, so I thought, so I'm going to, I have about like a little bit fewer than 15 students that I have on Sunday mornings on a regular basis who also have a dad living at home, like it's part of their family. So I'm not, for me, I'm not talking about like this humongous number, but I'm actually going to send each of those students a card, like a note card, like, hey, we miss you. And I'm going to enclose like a $10 gift card to the local, you know, wings restaurant and say, you know, why don't you take your dad out for Father's Day? So that's just like another little touch point with the family. So again, I'm not talking like hundreds of people. I'm talking, you know, a little bit over a dozen. So that's what I'm going to do. Any other?
Our church-wide, they did make an announcement that they are having a competition for people to submit their dad jokes, and then they get a chance to win a flat top grill. But kids ministry-wise, we haven't talked about anything yet.
Yeah. Usually, you know, when you're meeting on Sunday mornings in kids ministry, you usually address it somehow, like make a craft to give to dad or something like that. So, all right. So Joe has posted a link to their guidelines in the chat. So it's gracechurchsc.org/gather. Christy says, and this I think goes back to when we were talking about opening up, how we're opening up, that their church posts updates on their website and other social media with an unhurried and non-anxious approach. I like that. Very good. Also, Joe from Grace Church says, we have a doc that has why we use masks that we can send to anyone who wants. He can't figure out how to share the PDF link, but if you email him, he'll send it to you. And it's jclary, JCLAREY at gracechurchsc.org. Thank you, Joe. All right, what else are you working on these days?
I have a question since I'm new to calls. We're seeing, and I'm seeing in all the special needs literature that we're realizing, sadly, it makes me tear up when I think about it, how important this technology is to our families. And it excites me to see that we finally realize, like, wow, this is how we can reach our families. We personally have been doing Zoom church like this, and we've had people from hospital beds join us. We've had people on vacation join us. It's just been so beautiful. And so that is something that we're focusing on too as a church, that we don't lose this Zoom church. And we're actually going to create places and groups of people who are on Zoom church while we're having real church, and lead breakout groups and that kind of thing, just because we realize, like, wow, this is where we can finally connect. Like, I know I've talked with parents who say, we can't come, we just can't, we have to tag team or whatever the reasons. And it just gets me so excited that now, at least for us, now we finally figured out how we can reach them. And so that is just so exciting to me.
It's truly one of the blessings of this pandemic, for sure. Without a doubt. So yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Tiffany. That reminds me that there are several churches that are considering having that online, like staffing that online component going forward, which is, I think it's time for a commercial break. I want to remind you all that this Wednesday at noon Eastern time, Key Ministry is hosting our regular disability ministry video roundtable. And our subject this Wednesday happens to be staffing models for special needs and disability ministry. So it was a topic we were going to do in March. The pandemic hit, we switched over to talking about coronavirus, and it's time to start talking about this again. So I'm really excited. The way the roundtables are just the same format, and it's really helpful when we have people from a variety of churches participate, because we can learn so much from each other and different models of staffing, and I think kind of brainstorm too, because going forward, I think we're all going to be doing ministry differently than we have in the past, and that might look different with your volunteers, with your staff, what have you. So that's this Wednesday, noon East, so the same time as this one. And if you go to keyministry.org/events, you can register for that. So thank you, Tiffany. I think that's a really awesome point.
So one thing that our church did kind of that hits both of those, kind of staffing and also the sudden shift to online, was we have a big university in town, and so I was able to recruit an intern for inclusion who has she had already been involved as a buddy and been involved in respite and all these things, but we couldn't pay her, and as most churches can't just pay an extra person, but she was able to get internship units through UC Davis through her major, and so that ended up being a really nice thing. So she was able to handle a lot of the we did a lot of porch drop-offs, and we had a lot of people, we were all split, and so it was nice to have another person to do that. And so thinking about looking forward, for us, we're probably not going to be gathering in a formalized group. I would say fall, I don't know, who really knows, but I thought I'm like, I need to recruit another intern because her units she's done now. I need to recruit another intern because there is going to be this huge online component of people who are staying home even when we can all gather together. And it's really like I can't do all of those things, but we want to do them well. So that was one, that was kind of one thing that we had come up with, figuring that out. And so if you guys have, I don't know if you guys have resources, college towns or, people in your church who are like willing to take on like a superfied volunteer role in that way, it was really valuable for us.
Well, and the kind of the win-win situation is a lot of people who were really counting on getting their internship hours in this summer suddenly aren't able to. So if they were going to be working at camps or, all these hands-on activities, suddenly, all those things canceled, at least in most places in the country. And so if you're able to hire an intern and give them that experience doing some kind of online thing, you're going to make a few students really grateful. Because I think some programs are kind of struggling to find internship placements for their people right now.
I have a question for Bronwyn. Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So at our church, in children's ministry, we have the rule about you have to be a member. You have to be a regular attender for 6 months before you can be a volunteer. Are you not restricted by that rule?
No, in this case, the intern we had, she had been serving in the college ministry for a couple of years, so she was like already known to the church, and she's also on the board of our preschool with me. I recruited her for part of that, so she was like a known person.
Okay.
There's a couple other people that I would like to kind of take her place coming up, and they're all kind of known people. I have a call with one of our pastors, I think this week, like our directors, to ask like, hey, like we've never done this before, like in terms of like searching for someone. So what are the things that we should be looking for? But I do know some churches do have the 6-month rule or longer.
Good question.
Yeah, I'll actually piggyback on two things. So one, Autumn, for that, our church used to have that rule too, that you have to be a member X long, and you have to be a member to begin with to be able to serve. And when I was with the church, we had a lot of volunteers from the community who loved serving in our respite and our camps and those things, but they wanted to serve, and I had to keep turning them away because they didn't attend our church. And we're always needing more volunteers. So I went to our pastoral staff, and I had the luxury of being one of the pastors, and took it to them and asked them to challenge it and pray about it, and said that, I completely understand the ruling, but when it comes to being a buddy, that's the one area where there is no teaching being done. It's just being a guide on the side, helping keep them safe. I said, it's a shame that, we've got people who are wanting this. And I go, not only that, it can be a huge outreach for us. And I challenged them to pray about it, think about it. We'd still have the teachers doing everything, so they wouldn't be doing any teaching. And after praying about it, they determined that, yeah, we can make that exception for special needs ministry. So then we were able to start bringing in, people from outside the church. And it has been such a huge blessing. I'll never forget one of the first girls we had, 5 services every weekend. And she loved what she was doing. I'd give community service hours, and she would serve all 5 hours every weekend. And 1 month into doing this, after on Sunday, she grabbed me and said, "Hey, Doc, I got a quick question for you. What's this whole thing about Jesus all about?" And I got to talk to her, and with over 30 minutes, I got to lead her to Christ. And so, right there, that was fruitful by doing that. She stopped serving 5 hours because she started attending service 1 hour. Over the next couple of months, and she's a teenager, or the next couple of months, her parents and her brother noticed a huge difference in her and wanted to know what that was. So they came in to church, and I got to lead them to Christ. So an entire family got to be led to Christ because of that. And yes, we still have all the same requirements. If they're over 18, they have to have a background check. They all have to go through our training that we do. They still had to do the children's training. So they went through all the same process that everyone else did. But it was just a way that we thought outside the box to be able to do that. But through that process now, we've been able to lead, I've lost track, multiple families, multiple individuals to Christ. And we've been able to see, a significant portion of that grow with that. But I want also then just tip back to, on top of that, I agree completely with what Tiffany and everyone was saying about continuing ministry online. There have been a few churches that I've been talking with, and this is one where I want to challenge everybody here that's on this call. Please, 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 please be talking with your senior leadership and let them know the importance of this and that, because you may not even realize it. They may be thinking that they'll stop doing the online when they start up again. I've already talked to a couple churches. I'm trying to work with them where they started back online and they either stopped the online services altogether or they've moved it to a different day of the week, and it's just a tape delayed thing. So it's completely, these families now are feeling like they're not a part of it. And the whole reason is they didn't know the importance of it to the families with disabilities, because the disability ministry leaders never spoke up and let them know how important that is. So that's your job as a leader in your church. You have to be that advocate for your families, and you have to let the leadership know how important this is, because your families can't be telling them. So you are that advocate for them. And so let them know, how vital this is and how important it is, and, hoping that they will continue it, worst case scenario, having it on a different day is fine, but it would be great if it would be at the same time where they can feel like they're all a part of it and included. But it's just other ways that we can welcome our families into the church and feel like they're a welcome part. So I want to challenge everyone, make sure you're speaking up, that you're saying it. Don't just assume that they're going to continue doing it, because what I'm finding as I'm dealing with churches through the country is, tithing has dropped off significantly for a lot of churches, and online is expensive. And so if they're starting and decide to come back, that's one of the first things they're going to cut, because there's a lot of cost to it. So if they're not seeing value and why they need to continue that, they may not. So that's where you can come in and really speak truth into that and stand up for your families.
Yeah, that's a great point, Doc. Thank you. Yeah.
Can I just throw something in here?
Absolutely.
So Steve Gersovich, the president and founder of Key Ministry, actually wrote a blog article about this yesterday. We'll have it in our rotation of social media posts tomorrow on the Key Ministry Facebook page and the Not Alone Parenting page. So that would be a great thing to share with your leadership as well. He did a little informal survey over the weekend of special needs families to find out what they were thinking. Were they interested in continuing special online church? And every single one of them said yes. Absolutely, please continue it.
So that brings me to a question. Go ahead. Christy, do you want to go?
Well, I just want to understand. So are you all speaking about online Sunday services? Are you speaking about kind of like a Sunday school disabilities Zoom class for those children? Are you speaking about both, or just?
I think that in this case, because, when you have to approach senior leadership, I think that was like the full service, like the full worship service option online. Because as disability ministry leaders, like we can do, if we want to do the Zoom calls, we can do the Zoom calls. Like we have control over that. But this is really to advocate to continue for your church doing the worship service, that whole experience, continue to make that available online for families. Did I get that right? Okay. Does that answer your question, Christy?
Yes, it just seems, I just can't wrap my mind around it being really expensive, because you could live stream. So I don't, I'm connecting the dots.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. There's different ways to do the online service. And I know, so for instance, when my church goes back to in-person, which I mentioned is going to be outdoors, we're going to live stream that service. It's going to look a lot different than the online service that we've all been experiencing for these last 10 or 12 weeks, because the last 10 or 12 weeks, we've had a whole crew that's been producing these amazing videos and putting them together, and it's this whole thing, and this is just going to be live streamed like boom. That's fine. That's fine. And I think, churches need to be okay with it doesn't have to be this like cinematographic, like wonderful production, but it's what everybody else is experiencing too. So if it's an outdoor worship service, you're streaming that. You don't have to produce a separate worship experience. So
I think what the cost is that we've been talking about is that if we're going to continue to do the online service the same way and do the weekend thing, we feel that we need like almost a separate team to do that so that they can both be happening.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to improve, like Vineyard Kids, we want to have our own production equipment, and all of that is what we're going to be asking for.
Okay, yeah, so that's a little bit different. And Autumn, actually, thank you. You also posted in the chat that you're looking to improve, your kids ministry is looking to improve the online ministry. And that, yes, and that is, yeah, there might be cost involved with that. Making video can run the gamut as far as cost goes. Like it depends on what kind of production, quality and all that you're having. So yeah, so not to say that there aren't any costs with it, but at the very minimum, we're talking streaming the existing service, which a lot of churches were doing before, but hadn't put a whole lot of thought into it. And I think everybody knows how to do it at least.
And the other thing I'd say too is remember, especially as going forward, especially if you live in a town that has a college, really try to reach out to these colleges and if they've got any departments that do video or anything like that, get these students and do the internships. You're not going to have to pay them; they'll get the credit for it. But a lot of colleges are really searching right now to find help for their students to be able to find internships to do things, and to be able to get some students to come in who would do video work for you, who would do some of this design editing. They're out there. I'm right now in the process trying to reach out to try to find some help for ourselves, but they're out there trying to find that, because a lot of the internships that have been there, they've like Beth said earlier, they've disappeared. And so they still need to get this work done and that, but that's an easy way to get work done for you free, and it can be top quality work.
Yeah. All right, so let me lay out a question. Oh gosh, look at our time already. Okay, question for you. So we've talked about like the importance of not forgetting our families who are impacted by disability. What are some of the ways that your ministry, you have reached out personally to families in the last few weeks? I know we've talked before about some really clever ideas. Can anybody share what they're doing, what they've been doing lately, or how are you communicating? Do you have a regular email that goes out? Are you making phone calls? Anyone want to share?
I do emails every week, and I also do phone calls. But now that school is out, because I've really found from the families that I kind of have like my core group that they're my moms that I reach to. That's my heartbeat of the ministry, because there's just so many, and some are just so sporadic. Like if I look and go back to the database, like I can see that their child has maybe come 6 times in the last year. But we don't exclude them. But what I'm going to do now, and I did get positive feedback from my last email. So we share for free. I don't know if any of you all are familiar with Right Now Media, like the Christian, I don't know, Netflix to say. And so we provide that free to anybody in our church. But at the same time, what I'm going to do, and I've already done one, and I'm going to start offering more in the summer, is to screen share some of the kids stuff. One of them that I thought was really good, my kids are grown, so y'all might just like laugh at me like I just discovered this, but Phil Vischer does the Mr. Phil show. And it really does hit all levels, because it's cartoon characters and it's Phil Vischer. So it's not just little kids, because a lot of our ministry is older, and I did a test pilot with our Sunday group, and they're generally teens and older. So this summer I'm going to start doing more Zoom, more screen sharing, and really have found that some of these that in the beginning of this, like they were like, oh my gosh, Zoom, like they can't handle it. And now even some of our nonverbal ones with a parent being in with them has really taken off. So this summer, I mean, that's just, my plan is to be more Zoom.
Okay. Thank you. Weekends.
Okay, so we have, thank you, Beth. We send out emails. So we have kind of two different things going on. We have the special needs ministry through the church, and then we also have the parent ministry to special needs parents, and that's what we are in charge of. So we're in charge of the parents, but of course we do a lot of family stuff with the church as well. So, and I am good friends with the director of our special needs ministry, so that really helps because we like to talk to each other anyway, and so we always, whenever we talk about this stuff. So she sends out emails to the families on a weekly basis and to the volunteers. And then we have a Facebook group that we started for the parents. And then we also have an email list for parents who aren't on Facebook as well as the ones who are, so that we meet everybody's needs. We have meetups through Zoom. We're planning on doing one this coming Saturday. We're trying for at least once every 2 weeks, and we probably will up that. And then the moms especially were begging for an in-person thing. And Maryland is in phase 2. Maryland, we're not Maryland anymore.
I was gonna say, you don't live in Maryland.
Yeah,
Virginia is in phase 2, so we're allowed to meet in person. And so the moms were just begging, could we please do something in person? And so one of the moms stepped up and said, let's do a family, in fact, the whole family, a family play date. And so they actually invited families over. We didn't go, but we coordinated it. They invited families over to their pool. They have an above ground pool, and they invited families to come over, and the church had given out some food to certain families a couple of weeks ago, and people pulled that food together, and they had dinner, and so they had a blast, and we saw some pictures from that. So that was really cool. And now another family is volunteering their own home. So these are private homes, their own home for a parent get together. So it can be either just moms or moms and dads. They're voting on that now, trying to figure out whether they want dads to come or not. So, sorry, dads. So all kinds of things are happening. And then of course, we've had lots of driveway visits going on, and our sensory room is still being utilized during the week. There's 9 per week, 9 families per week that can come in, 3 on Tuesday, 3 on Wednesday, and 3 on Thursday, with lots of space in between to get it back disinfected. And families are taking advantage of that. So there's lots of good opportunities to stay in touch.
Great, thank you for sharing. Bronwyn shared in the chat that they send out a weekly email and a video to their families with announcements, games, and resources. They also added a specific KidsMin online page with links, which is sent out in the email. And every other Sunday, they have a kids Zoom. All right.
Sylvia has her hand up.
Oh, Sylvia, thank you. Hello. Yes, go ahead. Sorry, people move sometimes on my screen and I don't see you. Okay.
Right now we have like 3 components of people that we minister to. I send out Sunday school lessons every Sunday, activity sheets and things that they can do. We have a parent group that comes together for parents of children 0 to 3, which we call Journey with Jules. And we do a Zoom meeting with them so that they can just share what they have, the problems that they're having. We do a buddy break ministry. So we've been sending them a virtual buddy break video that we got together, and some of the buddies would call out the child's name, and we were able to send that video to the parents. I emailed them, and we sent letters to them where we took a picture of their face and put it on a paper doll. and we dressed the doll in whether it was a girl or a boy, and we put it in the mail with an activity sheet that they could just color, because we knew parents were really getting tired of Zoom meetings and all of those things. So we wanted to make sure that the parents really didn't have to be involved in what their activity was, that it was just a coloring sheet and a paper activity that they could do. We're in the process now of putting together a summer play pack that will have balloons, blow-up balls, bubbles, jump ropes, different summer activities, chalk and everything in a bag. And we're going to, the buddies we will pack the bags, and the buddies will come by and pick them up. They will have the child's name and address, and all the buddy has to do is do a drive-by and put it on their doorstep or whatever. We're still waiting for our parents to call us back and let us know if they really do want a one-to-one. We're not at that place yet anyway, so that may not be until July or August, but we just want to get a feel for what it is that parents want. And like I said, because school is over now and parents are not so overwhelmed with Zoom meetings and schooling and all the things that have been required of them to work at home and minister to special needs children, and then typicals and all that kind of stuff. So that's where we are right now.
Great, thank you. So that, yeah, there's a little bit of a shift now that school's over. And I love that relational piece that you're involving the buddies. So that's really cool. Thank you. Allison is sharing in the chat that she sent, so she's in Pennsylvania. She sends weekly emails and a weekly activity. So last week was a Zoom talent show for families and volunteers. And next week, a Zoom quiz night. This weekend, their kids ministry is giving out buckets of resources for the summer on Fruit of the Spirit, which is linked to whole church summer teaching and small group studies. Very cool. And Diana says that was very helpful, Sylvia. So thank you. All right, we're like out of time again. So that went very quickly. We will continue to, oh, Trace, okay, let me read this. One of the things she hasn't heard mentioned yet, we have a Daria challenge. Ooh, a Daria challenge. Each week in their Facebook group on Monday, they send out a challenge for the parents/kids to post a picture of them doing the challenge, and one family is chosen on Thursdays to win a pizza party. The challenges are all things they are probably doing anyway: help with cooking, make your bed, doing yard work, so families don't have to do more. I love that. Very good, very cool. All right. So yes, you get a thumbs up on that. Once again, I'm going to take all your ideas back and use them at my church. So thank you. I appreciate that. All right, we will be back here again next Monday. So we're doing all the Mondays in June, and then some in July and some in August. So you'll get an email every Monday when we're having it. So, all right, thank you everybody for participating, and hopefully we'll see you on the webinar or the roundtable on Wednesday. All right, thanks guys.